You also mentioned the healthcare industry, and you're asking the question, a very poignant question, and that is, what has happened to the medical profession when you have doctors who now think it's perfectly healthy to inject an 8-year-old with experimental puberty blockers? You have doctors who think children as young as 3 are psychologically capable of understanding concepts like gender and deciding if they're born in the wrong body. If you're looking for a prescription for happiness, you say it's probably not going to come from a doctor's pen. I mean, is this overstating the case, or is this an epidemic within the medical profession?
Yeah, I mean, they have been completely taken over. You're going to be hard pressed to find any pediatrician in any city in the country who will who feels like who will buck the regulations, who that are basically, doctors are being forced legally. The rules are that doctors now must ask children, starting when they're 12 or 13, about their gender. They are being forced to tell them about how to use birth control, drugs, condoms, birth control pill. Do you need, are you having any gender dysphoria? Doctors, this is nationwide. It's like the AMA guidelines or the pediatric, whatever. They're required in some states, I know in California, to put children through this gauntlet of question and interview. I discovered this when my son, I was kicked out of the room and his checkup, and he's like, I don't know, 15 or 16. And I was like, well, I trust him. I'm going to let this go. And I wanted to know what she was going to talk to him about. So I left the room and I got him, and she said, Mom, she asked me if I was comfortable with my gender. This is a kid who's like in a basketball uniform, like a boy. He's like a boy. Am I comfortable with my gender? She told me to have safe sex. Again, this is a boy that I'm raising as a devout Catholic. He doesn't believe in fornicating out of marriage. Like, she was telling him all these things that go against everything that we're teaching him because she has to. And I was like, okay, well, next time, great. Thank you for telling me. And I'm not ever going to leave the room again. I'm just, when they ask you to, and they will ask you, you say no. She tried to talk to me about this with another kid in the room, and I didn't leave. And I was like, listen, no, like, we're devout Catholics. He's a boy. Like, you don't need to, why are you doing this? Like, he's okay with his gender. If you have eyes, like a doctor knows looking at someone if they're sick, you can tell they're sneezing, they're coughing, right? Do those senses not work anymore? Can you tell that this little boy is perfectly happy being a boy? He's not depressed. He's not, acting weird. Like, he's not wearing pigtails and makeup. Like, he's happy being a boy. Why are you denying what your eyes are telling you? And she said to me, she confided in me this time. She said, yes, I agree. It's gone too far. All the other doctors at this practice agree that it's gone too far. We hate it. But we are legally compelled to ask these questions to our patients. And I was like, oh, well, yeah, thank you for telling me that. That really stinks. But basically, none of them feel empowered to fight back, to stand up and say no. Because what would happen? Would they lose their practice? They lose their livelihood. They lose their medical license. And I mean, these are people who did go into medicine, I think, to help children, to be good people. They're not evil. At least my doctors are not evil. But they are suppressing their own natural instinct, which is to not force this issue down parents' throat, to not ask a child this. And so, everyone is in the grips of the same kind of rabid madness, including the doctors, who are, for the most part, not the fanatics, who are just like struggling to figure it all out. And they're probably, most of them are liberals, so they don't really want to be aligned to people maybe on the right or whatever. There are fanatics, of course, out there. You see them talking about how wonderful it is to remove the breasts of a 14-year-old girl and how bottom surgery is so wonderful. Those are really the fanatics. Feels like the minority. So yeah, I mean, you can't send your kid to school. You can't get them near a public school teacher, and you can't take them to the doctor. And I like to joke in the book, like, you can homeschool your kid, but you can't like perform surgery on your own kid, right? What are you going to do?
What about dating apps? That's something else that really caught my attention. This is really, I think this is, I mean, you're touching on so many seminal issues, and this is certainly one of them. And I love the way you have hit that particular issue head on.
I feel very fortunate that I am a little too old to know too much about using dating apps. I don't think they were around. I think there was dating websites, but we had cell phones, but the app scene had not really started yet. And what I'm hearing, and you can read about this everywhere you go, and you meet people who are using the apps. They're not good. People are not having very good outcomes. I do know someone who is very happily married. She met her husband on the Bumble dating app. I think he was like the first guy that she met when she went on the app. They both happened to be devout Catholics. It all worked out for them. But on the other hand, for example, I have several male divorced friends and family who I'm close to. And, the divorces that they went through, all three of them were with a woman deciding. These were good guys. They didn't cheat on the wives. The wives just basically decided to split. They were like, I want someone different. I want someone better, whatever reason. Okay. So the men that I know, they immediately got on the apps and lost no time. I don't approve necessarily of what they chose to do, but I just reported on it because I thought it was really unbelievable. The volume and frequency with which single men are using apps, as sort of like it's a free prostitute service. It's a free escort service, sometimes lining up 1, 2, 3, 4 dates in a weekend. The women are now basically almost kind of aware of the game, and they're just in it to get a nice dinner or like a present, or it's not really, it does feel very much like an escort situation, but it's not. And to these girls who are on the apps, they're all kind of jockeying around for like the best male to get at the end, but I don't think they're marriage minded. I think they're looking for perks, whatever that is, whatever the perk is. I have no idea. A vacation, like, I don't even know. And the whole thing is so bleak and ugly to me and like disturbing on both sides, the men and the women, what those arrangements are. It's not, I would never recommend that someone who actually wants like an actual partner in life, who wants to fall in love. This seems to be the antithesis to love. There's not a lot of love out there. I'm all for going back to in real life meetings. We have to kind of bring that back. If you can find your loved one in college or at work or through friends. I met my husband really through friends. That seems to be the most effective way to ensure long-term relationship health. If you meet someone through friends, they're already coming like pre-vetted a little bit. Someone who knows them. They have a couple recommendations. They're not a psychopath or whatever. But the sad thing is that a lot of young people in their 20s don't have a lot of friends. People are so online. They're so digitally hooked. They don't have big friend groups. So we're kind of painted ourselves into this very difficult corner.
You suggest 5 ways to reclaiming parental authority. I think each one of them is powerful. We've discussed so much of this already, but you say exit government schools, delete TikTok from phones. Why TikTok is a question I have for you. And I pretty much know the answer. Keep your boys male and your girls female. Hold fast to the truth. And there you may, this is, and your humor in the book is just extraordinary, but tongue in cheek, you say, if you look at the 870,000 animal species on Earth, there are a grand total of 2 genders. Same thing with human beings, duh. Right. And the 5th, you say, become the domestic extremist your family needs. Be the parent that your children need. Those 5 things, I think, kind of summarize as a battle plan.
Yeah, no, exactly. These are not things that are, complicated. I didn't go out and reinvent the wheel. These are simple, timeless, eternal truths. They're based in, million years of evolution, but they seem to be very difficult to say out loud, difficult to put in practice. So I say like they're simple, but they're not easy, right? But I mean, just like the truths thing, like I just from day one of the whole, gender, hearing about the gender stuff, I would just say to my kids flat out, like, well, there's you can be a boy or a girl. At the zoo, how many genders do you see at the zoo? There's their male elephant and there's the girl elephant, and that's it. Like, there's no new stuff like under the sun. And so just raising them with these like eternal truths, sorry, that's just it. Like, your eyes are brown, they're going to stay brown. There's no way around. Just like the facts of biology. Sorry about that, kids.
Well, I mean, you absolutely, my son has a question for you.
Okay.
So he has this question. What is the best way to convince someone, let's say a liberal young feminist, to become a domestic extremist? I guess that's a good way of wrapping up the podcast.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah. So, the very liberal young women are not necessarily flocking to bookstores to buy my book. They're like, we get a little bit angry at this message. How dare I suggest that they give up something? So what I've been saying is that really the best way to get them is if there's enough capable, brave young men who can kind of woo them out of it. It worked for me. Okay. We need some toxic males to go around and literally kind of force women to like to let go of these ideas. I think that's one way to do it. The other thing that's maybe going to give your son some hope is that there is a huge pushback starting, okay, among young women, among Zoomers and millennial women who are realizing, and they're on TikTok, which you shouldn't have, but these women are on TikTok, and they're posting videos about how disappointed they are and disillusioned they are with feminism and with dating apps and with hookup culture, and how they don't feel empowered by it. They feel disgusted by it. They feel belittled by it. They feel humiliated by it. They want something different. And they are kind of now rediscovering old-fashioned trad values, but they're kind of, to them, it's new. Like, I discovered this really cool thing. It's called monogamy, or like, I discovered this really new idea. It's called true love, And so that's fine. They want to rebrand it. This is like this cool, edgy new lifestyle. Like, yeah, it's radical, man. Forsaking all others till death do you part. Whoa. It's edgy, and it really is. And so what I'm trying to do is start a counterculture. It is a very fringe, radical kind of punk rock thing to do. Become a domestic extremist.
So, I mean, you're actually talking about how in the scope, in the big picture, you have a man that you love, that loves you. You're beautiful now, but maybe when you're 80, you won't be quite so beautiful.
Well, you're very generous.
But he's still going to see you through the same eyes he saw when he married you. You're going to have someone that holds your hand if he outlives you, or vice versa, on your deathbed. I went through a very long struggle with stage 4 mantle cell lymphoma. And my family was there. My kids were there. My wife was there. My grandkids were there. Mm-hmm. That support network is probably the reason I'm sitting here right now. Yeah, so, I mean, you talk about these are really tangible benefits to fidelity, to monogamy, to jettisoning all that the culture is throwing at you and going back to that which ought to be normative.
Yeah, well, I'm so glad that you are better. That's crazy. Wow. And that your family was there for you. Exactly. I think people forget that we are mortal and that we die, and we all die much quicker than we would like. And life goes much faster than you think it's going to go when you're 25. At my age, I'm now like, oh no, like, here we go. Kind of cresting that hill a little bit. And I didn't really think about death until I was a Catholic, because when you're a liberal, there's no death. You don't think about death. That's because I was an atheist. So when you die, that's it. So I'm not going to think about that ever again. I'm just going to always be young. And I'm always going to be this age. And thinking about death made me realize, like, okay, let me reverse engineer my own death. Where do I want to be when I'm dead? Where do I want to be the last few years of my life? What do I want that to look like? For a lot of people, they're making choices now, not thinking about 30, 40 years in the future, what that's going to be like for them. And a lot of them, unfortunately, it's very sad, I hate thinking about it, are going to be totally alone. And, people are going to find their bodies, devoured by their cats, or, there's no one even going to do checkup. Who are they? It's not going to look like Sex in the City. You're going to be old and alone. And it's very depressing. If you go to a nursing home, I used to go and volunteer at nursing homes, and you see old women, old men, a lot of more old women than men. And they say, no one comes to visit me. I don't have kids, or I have one kid and they don't come visit. And it's very, very, very depressing. And, that's a fate I don't wish on anybody, even my worst enemies. And I certainly don't want that for myself. I hope that at least one of my children still loves me enough at the end. But yeah, I mean, the idea that you have this companion, you're only going to be like young and hot for a very short time. You think it's forever. No. That's a very short window that you have to, like, look cute for each other. And then eventually, you're only going to look cute, if you're lucky, to that one person still. They're going to be the only one who still sees you. Yes. They recognize that you're 70 or whatever, but they can still see you as you were because they knew you then. And that is so priceless. No one else has those memories. No one in the world, not even your children, have those memories. Your parents are dead. So your spouse is this kind of like living record of you as you were, hopefully, when you were, at your cutest or at your most youthful. And they're the only person in the world who has that, can look at you still, maybe with that filter. And that, to me, feels like, what it's all about. I don't know. Like, I don't want to be alone. And I pray to God every day that my husband and we die the same minute, and we're buried in the same coffin. That's like, that would be good. And I hope that's in many, many years. But I think that, to not have ever had that is so heartbreaking. My mother is divorced. She never remarried. And I think she is lonely. She has us. She has her grandchildren. We'll make sure, that she's never alone. But I definitely feel right now, I feel very blessed. Like, whatever arguments and disagreements my husband and I have, which we're normal people, sometimes they drive you crazy sometimes. But like, at the end of the day, I'm just so grateful and so blessed that I have someone who still loves me, even though I wrote this book, who I love. And so if you can say that in life, I think you're just way ahead.
Well, I think this is a brilliant book. I truly, when my son came to me with this book, he said, "Dad, you got to read this book." He said, "I read this book, and a lot of times I was all by myself laughing hysterically, but wow. And it's in the context of making a cutting edge point. And so you are brilliant at writing, at the use of humor. And for the audience, this book, Domestic Extremist, sorry. I'm doing this on purpose, of course, so you'll remember. Domestic Extremist, A Practical Guide to Winning the Culture War, Peachy Keenan, available to anyone who stands shoulder to shoulder with us in the battle for life and truth. You can get your copy on the web at equip.org. You can also write me at Post Office Box 8500, Charlotte, North Carolina, zip code 28271. You absolutely nail our mission statement. You're interesting. Wow. Informative, inspirational, and I thank you so much. You're going to help so many people through your wit and your wisdom.
Oh, that is so kind of you to say. I'm so humbled by that. Thank you so much. I certainly hope so. That was the reason I wrote it. So let's see. Thank you.
It's from the heart. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Peachy Keenan, again, Domestic Extremist, and it's a practical guide to winning the culture war. If you enjoyed the podcast, please subscribe, rate, review. It helps a lot. Thanks for tuning in to this edition of Hank Unplugged. Look forward to seeing you next time with more of the podcast.